Hello everyone, my name is Ace. I am the Figma Decal lead instructor, and today for the first time we're going to be trying out having these recorded labs. So today I'm going to be walking you through the lab 1 file called Figma Playground, and a little bit about how Figma kind of works, especially in the file navigator area. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. To get started, we can go to this Home tab. So when you open up Figma, you're probably going to see this kind of layout here where it's got this sidebar, a search bar, and your own personal information up here. You're going to see the side on the right that shows ways to make a new file and lots of cool templates that you can use. On the left, you're going to probably see a little bit less information than I have on my screen. I'm part of a lot of workspaces, and I'll explain really quick what all of these different things are. So firstly, up at the top here, you have these two tabs. One says Recents and one says Drafts. So these are spaces that you can find different kinds of files. So Recents will show you things that you recently viewed, whether they were your personal files or somebody else's files. You can see here that I have a lot of decal content open right now. Under drafts, you're going to see different kinds of files that you've made or that you've copied from the community. So these are different personal items that you have. They aren't associated with any teams, which means that even if you make a file that's in a team, it's not going to show up here. So what exactly is a team? So if you're a member of the Figma Decal class and you're currently enrolled, you're already in this team called Figma Decal Fall 21. Basically what this is a shared workspace where different people are able to collaborate together and able to have content that everybody can see at the same time. It's like a Google Drive in a way. Within this team, you see a lot of different projects, and I know the terminology is confusing. Each of our projects are actually labeled team blank. They're not strictly teams. We just use this terminology more day to day because it makes more sense to describe each of our lab groups as teams. So each of these is considered a project. If you're going to be working on something more personal, you might organize it in a different way. So I have my personal quote-unquote team that I use as kind of a storage system, so I can sort all my different projects into different things. So mine is called Ace Place, and it has a bunch of different projects in it. You can click here to show them as a grid view or to show it as a list view. So for me personally, all of these different kind of projects are showing up as different kinds of folders for me. So I have talks, I have projects, I have things that I make with friends, files I copied from community, and more, lots of other stuff here. But that's basically a look at what a team is. Under this tab, you're going to be able to access the Figma community, which brings you to a pretty different page. We're going to talk about this later in week 6, but again, this is a kind of online collaborative place that you can learn from other users and from the Figma team themselves. It's a really, really excellent resource to make it a little bit less scary to build something or make something for the first time, because you can use all of these files that people have already started making and explore them on your own. So really quickly, a few more things. To navigate back, you click this button and go to your personal account again. And we're going to look at this space right over here. So to make a new file, you can do either of these two buttons to make a design file or a FigJam file. And if you want to access any of your personal settings, you go up here to your avatar. If you haven't set one yet, it probably is just your first initial. Go ahead and click that drop down and you can see your community file if you've made one, your internal profile, plugin settings, and more information here. If you do want to check out what your internal profile looks like, basically your activity, your file contributions, and your email, you can go there. And if you want to change your profile picture, which I highly recommend you do, you go to settings, and then go ahead and edit your own personal profile picture, change your display name, email, password, all of that good stuff. So that's kind of it for the file navigator. With that, we're going to jump right into the lab itself. So this lab can be found if you actually go to Figma Community and search for Figma Decal. So once you look for Figma Decal, you'll see that we're under Creators, and you can follow us here or just click on our content. From here, you can access the Lab 1 Figma Playground file. We're going to go ahead and click in there, and then you can press Duplicate. It's going to make a copy of the file in your personal drafts, and then you're going to be able to navigate it however you want. One other note is that I'm currently in the desktop app for Figma. Some of these files might look a little bit different when you're in the browser version. For the most part, you're going to be able to activate them in the same general ways. So with that, right into the lab, we're currently on the thumbnail page. I'll move up here to this first page, navigation. So this is a pretty interactive lab, and I would highly encourage that you try it on your own, but I am going to walk through it so you can see sort of how I expected it to go. I'm just going to pause for a moment. If you personally want to pause and just try to do this whole page on your own, I highly recommend it. So we're going to go ahead and just try this. So when I'm in this workspace, I can see that this first piece of text says, "Welcome to lab. Click on me and press Shift 2. So I'm going to click on this, and then on my keyboard, I'm going to press Shift and then the number 2. And you can see that's actually going to bring up this bell that says Zoom to selection. So Shift 2 is a shortcut that helps you zoom into whatever you have selected, whether it's a single object, multiple objects, or a frame, anything that you want. In this case, the selection that we have is this group that's called Start. So if we go over to this Layers panel, you see that it's a group highlighted by this dotted line that contains the text, all these little sparkle icons, more text, an arrow, and this gray background. So next, now that I'm here, it says to try scrolling down. I personally use a mouse, but you can use your touchpad as well. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down on the mouse, and you see that pans me down, brings me down all of these colorful arrows to the next panel that says level up, scroll to pan part 1. Now scrolling is basically one quick way to pan around the canvas, and as we talked about, panning is moving left, right, up, or down around the whole workspace. So to try one more different kind of scroll, you can do 2 things. Again, if you're using a mouse or a Windows trackpad, you can hold Shift and scroll down or up. And if you're using a Mac trackpad, go ahead and just go left and right. So I'm going to hold Shift on my computer. You can't see it, but I'm holding Shift. And if I scroll up, you're going to see that I'm going the wrong way. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and follow these arrows to the next thing. Now that was the second part of scrolling to pan, but there are a few other shortcuts for panning. So the next thing we're going to do is trying the space shortcut. So when I press space, you see that my cursor actually just became a hand. When I let go of space, it turns back into a cursor actually. This is really helpful in the future. So we're going to talk about that a little more once we try to do this. So I'm going to hold space, and now I'm going to click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, follow these loopy arrows to go wherever it's taking me, click and drag all the way here. There you go. So space is the quickest shortcut to the hand tool. It's what I use personally the most often, especially as a mouse user, because it actually just switches you back to the tool you were on before. One other way to access the hand tool is to click it right up here. You've got a hand shape right there, or to press H on your keyboard, like I'm going to do right now. It's going to put you on the hand tool. So again, one cool thing is that it doesn't take you off of the current tool you have selected. So if I say want to make a rectangle, I can press R and I'm on the rectangle tool. You can see through this little plus sign crosshair that is I'm on a shape tool. But if I press space and I let go of space, I'm going to go right back to that tool I was using. So it's the easiest way to pan without kind of disrupting your workflow or interrupting whatever you're currently working on. So we're going to switch now to the hand tool by clicking this and follow the arrows to the next spot. Awesome. So that's the hand tool to pan. That's basically all you need to know about panning. It's pretty much all of the tricks that you need. One more fun thing to do is if you also use a mouse like me and your middle scroll button is clickable, by default, if you click the scroll button inward, like click it down, and then you drag, it's going to also let you use the hand tool. And you can see that it's active because the hand icon itself kind of squeezes like this to show that it's activated or not. So now with your favorite method for zooming, we're going to go ahead and move to the new area, for panning. So I'm going to actually just use the space bar and go ahead and scroll right over to here. So this is a little bit too small to read, which means that we've got to zoom in. So the first thing we can do is press and hold Z. So I'm going to hold the Z button on my computer, and you see that my cursor becomes a magnifying glass with a plus sign. So now, just because I want to read this tiny portion, I'm going to go ahead and click and drag from A to B. It's going to make this blue marquee, this kind of blue square area, and now when I let go, it's going to actually zoom me in. So you can zoom into a selected area or a selected marquee using the zoom tool. So to zoom back out, there's a couple of other things that you can do. First is zooming back out by scrolling. That's the one that I use the most often, again, because I'm a mouse user. I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard and scroll down. It's going to zoom me right back out, and then I want to hover over the yellow star on the left and zoom into it by scrolling up. So I'm zooming out, I'm zooming out, I'm zooming out, and you see that when I zoom in, it's actually going to go towards the area that my mouse is hovering. So if I hover my mouse on this area, it's going to go up here, but if I zoom back out and hover on the star, I'm going to go a little bit closer to the star. So awesome, I'm now at the star, and there's one more way to zoom. I can press the plus or minus keys on my computer. So I'm going to press minus, 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 minus. And I'm going to go plus, 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 plus. And one other thing I can do is just go ahead and click on this zoom and view options menu. So here, there's a lot of different things you can have, like really quick shortcuts to zoom in and to zoom out that I'll be showing you later. And also I can just type in here what percentage I want to zoom to. So I want to actually go to 70%. So now I can see that I've gone pretty far out, but it's still not all the way out. So I'm going to do my favorite way of zooming, which is control scrolling, and zoom all the way back out. And I'm going to go ahead and do plus minus to zoom back into this frame. Awesome. So it says to just zoom and pan to readjust this frame in your screen. This last super helpful shortcut is Shift 1, which is zoom to fit. I use this all the time, and what it's actually going to do is show you everything on your screen. So I'm just going to go ahead and press Shift and 1, and there, it goes to the entire screen. I can see the whole file the way it was when I opened it. And now it's just the easiest way for me to go out and say, oh, I want to work over here now, but actually I want to go back out and I actually want to work over here. And then I get a little bit confused about where I am, so I can go ahead and press Shift 1. So yeah, that's basically all there is to navigation in Figma. You can pick whatever one of these tools you like the best, and then just, get your way around the file however you see fit. The next part is going to be the selection tool. So I'm going to pause for just a second. Obviously, I can't answer any questions live, but if you have any questions, do jot them down and feel free to bring them to Slack. And then we're going to move right on to the selection. All right, so the next tool that we're going to be practicing is the selection tool. This is, again, like we talked about, the way that you select and move objects, and it's kind of the item that you're on by default. So you see right here, normally I'm on the move tool. I think it's formally called that, but we generally will call it the selection tool, as it's what it's normally called in other programs. So the shortcut for that is V. You can think of V as being shaped like a cursor in a way. But we're going to go ahead and just practice a couple of different tricks and skills that are really helpful here. So I'm going to zoom right in. Practice 1, moving this horizontally. So I want to move this face to this area. I'm going to click on this face. When I move it around, I might not be exactly perfect. You're going to see all these red lines come up all the time. Don't worry about them, but you can use them whenever you need. So I want to move it here, and if I just put it here, it's not quite perfect. So what I'm going to actually do is undo, Control Z, bring it back there, and I'm going to hold Shift while I move it. So I click on it, and I'm going to press Shift. It's going to now lock this into place horizontally. Even if my mouse kind of goes a little bit above or below, it's not going to change it. And I can also go vertically in the original area. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move it right onto that face. See, it's now aligned with the bottom one, and let go. With the next one, I want to move it while duplicating. So we talked about in lecture that there's a really easy way to duplicate items through the Alt or Option button. So with this face, I want to drag it. I know I can drag it with Shift over to the new area, but I don't want to delete it. I want to still have 2 copies. So what I'm going to do is now press Alt, and it's just going to pop up an original copy where it was before. So I can actually press Alt, and I've already started moving an object. If I let go now, it's going to disappear. This is a really easy way to just copy something, again, because you don't have to immediately decide if you're copying it. You can go ahead and decide later. So now I'm going to hold Alt and hold Shift, bring it right into place, and then let go of both at the same time. And there it stays. So the horizontal flip is a super helpful thing if you're doing illustrations or if you just need to have something be symmetrical. So with this, I have half of a heart that I want to copy. I'm going to click it, I'm going to move it to the side, and I'm going to duplicate it like we did before. So I'm holding Alt, I'm going to let go. And now I want to horizontally flip it, so I'm going to do Shift H. As you can see, Shift H is going to kind of turn that left and right so that it's there. You can actually see that it's technically rotated 180 degrees. This is just kind of a way that Figma does the flipping action. So when I have it flipped the way I want it, I'm going to move it right back here and finish that heart. The vertical flip is the exact same idea. I want to copy and duplicate it, again with Shift and Option, or Shift and Alt, and then I'm going to do Shift V, V for vertical, to flip it vertically, and, oh, sorry, I'm doing that. Bring it right back up so it says cool. Another thing that I'm going to say right now, a little extra tip for those of you watching, you can also move things with the arrow keys. So here I'm just tapping the right arrow over and over again, and here I'm holding the right arrow. one super helpful thing is to hold shift while you're moving it. It's actually going to increment it in 10 pixels. So when you see here, the X state right now is 817. When I hold shift and right arrow, it's going to go to 827, shift right arrow 837, shift right arrow 847. This is really, really helpful if you just need to get that pixel perfect increment, but it's a little bit too far. And this is also helpful if, say, I want to make sure they're 0 pixels apart. So I'm going to hold Alt and hover over this. It's going to say there's 66 pixels apart. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to hold Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now they're going to be perfectly aligned. So nudging things with the arrow keys while also holding Shift is a super, super helpful thing to do. Practice number 5 is to do multiple select. So I'm going to do both ways of doing this. The first is to select all the stars individually and then group them. So with that, I'm going to select 1, hold Shift, 2, keep holding Shift and click on all 5 stars. Then I'm going to make a copy, or I'm actually going to group them first. So there's 2 ways to do that. One is to do a right click and click group selection, or as you can see, the keyboard shortcut is Control or Command G. For now, I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now they're all copied. Now I want to obviously copy them right here. So I'm going to put them here. And again, I can hold Shift in order to do that the easiest way. And now they're copied there, and I want to make a copy to put here, so I hold Alt and I hold Shift to lock it into place, and I put them right here. There you go, now you have stars. To show you one way to ungroup them is clicking them. I'm going to make another copy right over here, and I want to ungroup them. I can do right click, ungroup. It's going to be Control Shift G, and do that, and now you see they're all 5 separate stars again. And if I want to select them in a different way, I can do the marquee, and that's going to let me select all of those individually as well. Now the final practice here, practice 6, is the measurement guides. I want to move this face to be 200 pixels away from the right and 100 pixels away from the bottom. Oh, sorry, my lighting got really weird just now, but hopefully that's okay. There you go. So again, you can do the arrow keys and hold Shift if you want to move in increments of 10. So right now I'm going to click on it, and see this is 200 from the bottom and 145 from the right. So to move it closer to the bottom, I'm going to hold Shift and tap down, 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 down. Now it's at 100. If I want to move this to the left more, to get it to be 200 pixels, I'm going to go holding Shift still, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let go of Shift, and now I'm going to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's 200 away from the right, 100 away from the bottom. So it's the selection tool. For the most part, you can basically press Alt, Shift, Control or Command, and that's going to get you most of these shortcuts again. Right now I'm going to zoom back out with Shift 1. It's going to bring me back out, zoom to fit. And that's all the selection tool tricks. Just to give you one extra heads up, one more kind of bonus thing, if you're watching this, I'm going to show you how to actually make a shape bigger or smaller without even using your mouse. So I'm going to make a rectangle. It's going to be, let's make it 250 by 250. Oh, 250 by 250. And let's make it blue. And now I want to make this actually 300 by 250. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this shape. And while I have it selected, hold Control or Command and then do the left and right arrow keys. So if you actually watch this here, it's going up by 1 pixel. And if I hold Shift while also holding Control, it's going to go up by 10 pixels. So again, this is really helpful if you need to just nudge the size of something just a little bit, but you don't feel like typing it. It's really useful there. I can go up and down. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. I can make it wider, and I can make it narrower. So again, that's going to be clicking an object, pressing Control or Command, and pressing Shift if you want to increment by 10, and then using the arrow keys. So holding Control or Command lets you resize a shape that you have selected. So with that, we're nearing the end of this lab. I'm going to go ahead to the picnic practice. And this is just a kind of more fun thing that I wanted to make to help you practice all those skills. So we're going to go on a quick little scavenger hunt to find all of the different items that we have here. So you see down here that there's all of these kind of dotted lines showing where to put all of the items that you find. We want to make sure that they're all rotated the right way, that they're all the right size, and that they're all going to be placed exactly where we want them to be. So first, I'm going to just kind of search around. I see here that there's apples. One helpful thing I want to point out, some of these things don't have the blue box on them when I hover, like this tree bark here, this cloud, these flowers, nothing comes up when I hover over them because those layers are locked. So as you can see, some of these layers over here have these little lock icons, and it means that you can't interact with them on the canvas. This is really helpful for something like a background. You have a background on your image and you don't want anybody to mess with it. You can lock it to make sure nobody accidentally moves it or changes the color. So to do this, let's say I do want to move this tree. I can select it here and then unlock it. That's going to now let me move this tree around, which I don't have to do, but it lets me do it if I wanted to. I'm going to undo that, put it back, and lock it again. And now that it's locked, you're going to see that I actually can't select it here. It's not letting me click on this tree no matter what I do. Locking, again, super helpful. If you ever want to lock a lot of layers at once, you can select them all here and then do Control-Shift-L. It's going to lock all of those. If you do it again, it's going to unlock all of them. Now there was one that I left locked earlier that I want to keep. The flowers are locked. But just again, to lock, you can press the lock icon on the layer as it hovers and appears, or you can do Control or Command plus Shift plus L. So let's go ahead and do this. So I already don't remember where I put these because I made this a long time ago, but I see some apples. So I want to drag this apple over here and drag the second apple over here as well. Now when I go here, I see that they're not quite rotated the amount that I want. These all look like they're 0 rotated, so I'm going to go ahead for this one, rotate it. And if you remember from lecture, you can actually lock it into place in degrees of 15 by holding Shift. So holding Shift, it's now at -30, -15, and now it's flat. So that's exactly what I wanted. Let's move that into place. Awesome. With this one, I'm actually going to just directly manipulate it up here. I can see this says 20.1. I'm just going to click that, delete it, and write 0. And now it's going to be exactly how I want it. It's going to be flat. If I wanted to instead type, 359, it's going to just slightly be tilted. It's going to say -1. If I want to say I want it to be tilted 90 degrees, I can just type that and go here. Another really handy thing for any of these is that sometimes when you hover over the letter or the icon, you'll see your cursor becomes these 2 arrows. So if I want to just do that, I can click and drag. It's actually going to let me turn it however much I want there. This is going to be really helpful sometimes. And now I can just go to 0 and put it right back where I want it. So now I want to make 6 total apples. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hold Alt, drag them out, and hold Shift to put them horizontally. And one fun thing that I'm going to teach you is the duplicate function, if you're never familiar with it. Now that I've made a copy through Alt, if I want to duplicate it into the same distance away, I can just do Control-D. It's going to make the apples actually the same distance away as I just did. So just to illustrate that a little bit more clearly, I'm going to make a rectangle here. It's going to be, let's make it green. And I'm going to drag it out over here. It's 13 pixels away. Now I actually want a whole row of rectangles that are 13 pixels apart, so I'm going to do Control-D over and over again. It's actually going to duplicate all of them however far I want. And now let's say I want columns. I want to make a whole grid of these. So I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to hold Alt, duplicate that down there to be 13 pixels away again. 13 pixels, let go. And then I'm going to do Control-D, Control-D, Control-D. So now I've made, I can't even count, 5 times 9, 45 squares, and it took me like 20 seconds. So this is going to be a super helpful thing when you have to make lots of copies of lots of things. So going back up, I want to look for a couple more items. So I see that I can move this picnic blanket. I'm going to pull it over here. There's this giant cake here. Now, I don't want this cake this big, though. In real life, I would want this cake this big. I'm going to pop it right here and make it a little smaller. So like we talked about earlier, there's a few different ways to resize something. So if I drag it from the corner here, I can resize it naturally however I want. It can get really distorted, whatever strikes my fancy. I'm going to undo that. If I want to make it just flatter, I can do just from the bottom or the top. And if I want to make it just narrower, I can do just from the left or the right. But what I want to do here is maintain the proportions of this cake. So I'm going to click on it, I'm going to drag it here, and then I'm going to hold shift. Again, the magic shift key is going to keep the ratio of this cake size. So now that I've got that, I can do this and align it with that cake size I want. Put it right here, and then duplicate, Alt, Shift, and then press Command D to make the third one. There you go, that's the cakes. A few more to go. I've got the cheese, bread, popsicles, and oranges. I see the oranges right here. So I'm going to go ahead, I want to select both of them at the same time. I'm going to do a drag select to get both of those. Oh, I don't want this bush though. So if I've accidentally selected another object that I don't want selected, you can deselect it by holding shift and clicking it. So holding shift means that you're going to kind of add things to your selection or subtract them. So if I hold shift, I click this bush, it's going to add it. If I hold shift and I click this orange, it's going to deselect it. You can see that this whole region is highlighted by the edges of the furthest objects. So instead of it being like a bunch of different smaller squares, you can see the whole area, and everything that you want selected is going to have an additional square to show that that specific object is part of your selection. So now again, I'm going to select just these two oranges, and I'm going to bring them all the way down here. There we go. And you see again, they're a little too small, and this one is flipped. So for this, I'm going to drag it down here. Sorry, the dragging is a little bit laggy. And I'm going to hold shift and resize it to be bigger. This one I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag it down here, hold shift, resize to be bigger, and then I'm going to flip it horizontally. So that's shift H. Shift H is going to let me do that. It's going to flip around. I'm going to put it the way I want it. Again, duplicating, dragging and pulling, and then dragging and pulling. Now we see it's exactly aligned with that top orange, and it's still aligned with the left orange as well. Awesome. A few more things. I'm going to see this bush. These bushes can be moved, so I'm going to select both. And actually, one interesting thing here that you can see is when you select through the dragging, it's going to select objects no matter how deep they are. So there's actually, you can see a spoiler here, a square object or a square-ish object that's hidden behind the bush, but it's been selected because I did that click and drag. So I want to make sure that that gets selected, so I'm going to just click this and move it away. And now I see that the bread is back there. Because of this, you can see that there's this Z-axis layer that you can't really quote-unquote see, but you can move things in front of and behind each other. So if we actually inspect this layers panel here, you see that there is a bush and you see that there is a bread. So I'm going to select both of them. The bush is on top of the bread, just the same way that the bush is physically on top of the bread in the file. If I want to make this bread at the very top, what I can do is right-click and say bring forward or bring to front. So I want to bring it all the way to the top. Again, you see this probably in Google Slides like I've talked about. And I want to bring this all the way to the front. I'm going to click that. And now the bread is on top of the bush and it's at the very top of the layers list. So with that, I want to bring the bread all the way back down here. Got two buttery breads and I want to make just one copy. You see those alignment guides kind of kicking in right now. And I've made another copy of that. All right, last few items. I'm going to pull up this picnic basket, and there's a popsicle. I'm going to drag that down here, and time to rotate. So again, we talked about rotation earlier. This time I'm going to hold the corner and press shift and hold it exactly 90 degrees. Perfect, and I want to resize it. So I'm going to align it here with the popsicle that I see here. Oh, it's going to be a little tricky. One nice thing is that the alignment guides are only really going to show up for something that's on your screen. So if I don't want to be distracted by, oh, is it lining up with the oranges? That's not really important to me. So I'm going to zoom in so I can't see those oranges, and it's only going to show me alignment guides for the stuff on my screen. So this other popsicle right here is going to be the only thing it's affecting. So here I'm going to line it up there, and then I'm going to hold shift and drag it out to be the size that I want. Awesome. Now I've got 4 popsicles. I'm just going to copy these. Sorry, the dragging is quite laggy on my computer right now. And I'm going to make 2 more. I'm going to click both of these actually and just drag them out like that. Awesome. Now the last one, the cheese, wherever it is. So I'm going to find that. Where could it be? Back here. It's not here. Wow, I genuinely don't remember where I put this cheese. But maybe it's behind this bush. Okay, yay, I found it. So this is the last thing. It's going to be the cheese. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that right there, and that's actually it. So I'm going to zoom to fit. That is this lab. I know that the bushes aren't quite in the right place right now, but I found everything for this little picnic, and I've learned how to use the selection tool and all of the navigation tools. And that's really it for this lab. I hope you enjoyed it if you're following along. I hope that you had a good time. Um, I'm hoping to put in a couple of these like extra tips that I was talking about into all of the labs that I record and that the rest of the staff records. But that's going to be all for today. That was 3 whole pages of content that we went through together. And if you have any questions, you can always send them to me on Slack. You can send them in the Ask channel or in the Lab channel. And I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if this is something that you liked doing. Please feel free to DM me if you watch this and you have any suggestions or ways that we can improve. If there's anything that you didn't like, if you want me to, have less explanation, that kind of thing. But that's going to be it for today. And thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day, morning, night, afternoon, whatever it is. Thank you.